I've read this book multiple times, and I want to apply it to a lesson that I learned from the book to real estate investing. So the art of war and how that applies to real estate investing, and it's really quite insightful. And that's why I want to share it with you. What's up, bootstrappers and replayers watching the replay? This is Ryan Nickel coming at you with I don't know if I'm going to call this a motivational Monday or just straight up you know what? Nah, it's not so much motivation. This is just straight up real estate investing advice and guidelines. So I read The Art of War. I've read that book many times by Sun Tzu. I think that's how you pronounce the dude's name. He is a Chinese military strategist, and just been fascinated with his philosophy in war and military techniques, or actually not even techniques, just overall stratagems and strategy. And I've read this book multiple times, and I want to apply it to a lesson that I learned from the book to real estate investing. So the art of war and how that applies to real estate investing, and it's really quite insightful. And that's why I want to share it with you. I got turned on to the art of war by my father. He studied a lot of Eastern philosophy back in the day, like Taoism and stuff like that. And so it was something that he turned me on to as a young adult kind of thing, early 20s. And, in my inexperience, I just read a book. I'm like, it's kind of dumb. It's kind of a dumb book. It's just like, it's real small, real thick, or not even thick at all. And so I just was able to go through it and not really grasp the concepts. And then here I am, in the middle of the 2020 election, watching Trump and all of this stuff. And I'm thinking here, and everyone's like, oh, he's the master at the art of war. Oh, he's doing this and he's doing that. And I'm just like, all right. I mean, it piqued my interest again into it. So this thing rattled all over the place. So it piqued my interest into it again. But yet I never saw him fully they said it's always behind the scenes. Oh, he's always doing this thing. Here's a strategy: is appear to your enemies, appear weak when you're strong, and appear strong when you're weak. And I'm like, oh, he's appearing weak, he's playing the fool, and he's doing all these dumb things, and they're like, oh, he's appearing weak, so they think that he's weak when he's really strong. Well, he didn't win the election, or if he did win the election, and he had this strength, he was playing down, and he had the strength to come back and beat it. What happened? So it's okay. So in my mind, I'm like, man, what's going on here? So I wanted to this is what triggered me to want to go ahead and read it again to see what's really at play. It was more of, it was motivated through political means, but man, I found a gem of a gem in real estate that I was just like, oh, geez, this was perfect. This is exactly what I needed to read and hear. So a little background: 2020 was a phenomenal year for us. It was a fantastic year. As soon as COVID restrictions hit in March, we were out buying in April and May, and we bought a bunch of property. And in fact, we are getting ready to list this week here our very last property that we picked up during that time. So we were able to pick up a lot of property because, as I think it's accredited to Warren Buffett that when there's blood on the streets, you want to go and start buying. And so a lot of people were freaking out and they're selling their properties and stuff like that. Blow past this person. So anyway, we went and bought a bunch of property. Toward the end of the year, things started to change for us. Well, we kind of got fat and lazy, if you want to call it that, because we bought these properties and we're sitting on them, and we weren't, actively marketing for new properties as aggressively. And our go-to has been for a number of years at the end of the year. So from November all the way through February, that November will carry us into February. We've had very strong year-end closings, and we sold property, but we didn't acquire property. We acquired one new property in November. In December and January, we didn't. February we did, and here we are in March, and tied up some new ones as well. In fact, just got a contract signed this morning. Well, we sent it to him over the weekend, and it came back via DocuSign today, so we're good to go. Anyway, I digress. here's the crazy thing is we at the end of the year, we're going after these properties, the low-hanging fruit per se. We were going after the tax defaults, the year-end pre-foreclosures that needed money for Christmas. Those were the low-hanging fruit. But with this whole moratorium in, this foreclosure moratorium, there's not going to be any foreclosures. The counties aren't foreclosing on tax sales. The insured mortgages aren't foreclosing. So there are a few mortgages that are foreclosing, but they're not the insured ones. They're not the Fannies and the Freddies, the VAs. Those just aren't happening right now. And so it's like, all right, man, this is interesting to watch this happen. And so our go-to low-hanging fruit wasn't there. And so here I am in January, and I'm reading this book, The Art of War, and I'm doing it because of the whole Trump 2020 January 6th incites it, the riots supposedly that were incited by Trump in his speech. And then the inauguration happened, and I'm like, man, if this guy had an ace up his sleeve, like it never showed. And then there are people that still believe that, oh, he's still working behind the scenes, stuff is happening. It could be, but I cannot hang my hat on that. I got to move forward, and I got to make, I got to worry about my own self, my own business. I can't be worried about what's happening behind the scenes. But again, I wanted to read this book to understand. That's what led me to it. And in the process of reading this book, The Art of War by Sun Tzu, I discovered something that I had overlooked for a long time. And here it is. So it is, you want to attack your enemy when they are near defeat. You want to attack your enemy when victory is inevitable and execution can be flawless. I'm going to repeat that again. You want to attack your enemy when victory is inevitable, when they are near death, basically, and when execution can be flawless. Near death, guaranteed victory, and flawless execution. That reminds me about a book I read a long time ago called Flawless Execution by the Afterburners. These are American Air Force pilots that put together this amazing book on being just flawless execution every single time. It's flawless. But here's the thing: the only time something can be flawless is when you have you're that good in what you do that you've rehearsed it enough times that you're competent or beyond competent. You're a master at your skill. And then two, where there's no resistance. There's no there's no curveballs thrown at you or anything like that. It's just a lay down is what it is. So as soon as I read that, I thought, well, where is that in real estate? If you're going after high equity and you're going after, failed listings, or you're going after FSBOs for sell by owners, there's a lot of resistance. There's a lot of variables, a lot of curveballs that can come at you in that situation. That is not a guaranteed win. And I look back, and the guaranteed wins that I have had over the years have been the pre-foreclosures, the tax defaults, the code enforcements that not just weed abatement, but hey, this is structural integrity issues, or you have it's unsafe habitation because you don't have electrical, or you don't have running water, or you don't have proper sewage. All of those things. I'm gonna go ahead and pull over right here because I'm getting my oil changed, and I'm just a little bit early, and I want to finish this video. And so all of those things are near crippling to somebody and their business. That's parallel parking. And so, when I come to think about those, okay, great. If I want to succeed, if I want to just go out there and have a flawless execution, and I need to go towards where victory is guaranteed, or where victory is almost guaranteed, where it's inevitable. And so you think about this situation, and where should you be focusing your time and your energy? Now, the moratorium, that's what made me pull back and go, I'm not going to go after foreclosures. But you know what? I missed a huge opportunity on foreclosures. There was a private foreclosure. It was actually on a property that we sold. We sold this property. It was 10 acres, and it was a mobile home and a house. And the mobile home was not attached. And we sold it for close to $400,000 on this one. And she had half down. She had $200,000 down, and then she got private money for the other $200,000. Well, something happened to her along the way, and she wasn't able to make the private money payments. And I knew this. In fact, my partner told me, but he's like, nah, stand down on this one. I'm going to have my wife go after her because for whatever reason, you know, since we sold it to him, he was worried that it might come back on him and his license or something like that, that we, you know, sold her a bag of goods that she couldn't fulfill on. And so anyway, I stood down and we didn't do anything. It goes to auction, and no one showed up because everyone like me, like, oh, foreclosures aren't happening. So it shows up, no one bids it, so he takes it back. He got a $400,000 property for his $200,000 note. And that is a perfect example of what is happening out there. There are people that are, I know a guy, he's in St. Louis. He is doing short sales right now. He's doing short sales with people who are in forbearance plans with the CARES Act. And he's telling me, he's like, you are missing out on opportunities just because it's not, these NODs are being filed, but foreclosure, or I should take it back, on forbearance, NODs are not being filed because they're in forbearance plans, but there still are NODs being filed. But if, you know, these people have missed their payments, you can still do a short sale. Like, I'm not a short sale person, I don't do short sales, but that's what he's doing. He's doing short sales because if you miss one payment, then you're in a short sale situation because now you haven't met that obligation. So he's going and he's buying these houses for cheap. He told me he just picked up a house for $28,000 at ARV is, no, $33,000 and ARV is $150. I'm like, that's fantastic. That's amazing. So going back though, where's the opportunity for me in my business? Well, the opportunity for me is, who are those ones that are on the verge of dying? You know, that, you know, they're, you know, so Sun Tzu is talking about in terms of war, you know, death and conquering and stuff like that. I'm talking about sellers and, you know, their life expectancy in that house, basically. And what I mean by life expectancy is, like, realistically, how much longer do they have to live in this property before either the bank takes it or the city forecloses on it or something like that? And so, yeah, foreclosures, pre-foreclosures, they're still out there. You know, even the ones that had, you know, NODs and notice of trustee sales prior to COVID, those are still there. That hasn't gone away. They just have a moratorium. It just keeps getting kicked down the road. And so I use a software called Property Radar. PropStream is similar. You can look these things up. It's out there. In fact, Property Radar is now nationwide. I don't know if their auction stuff or their pre-foreclosure stuff is nationwide, if it's just their data. I really don't know. I have their legacy program where I just use the 5 states that I'm in, or their original 5 states. I only work in California, mainly. And so where can I execute flawlessly? Where can I go where there is a high likelihood that they are not going to succeed, that victory is inevitable, where they're not going to be able to overcome their challenges? So pre-foreclosures, definitely. Tax default. You can go down to your county and you can request the tax default list. I've done this. In fact, I do it every single year. I just got my list for both counties that I work in, and there are so many people that are so behind that they're never going to be able to catch up on this. And so for them, they cannot afford to pay back what is owed, that it's inevitable. And then of course code enforcement. So the third one would be code enforcement. So for code enforcement, again, you know, if they have a property that they can't live in, or they have a rental property that they're not able to get income from because there's a sewer line breach somewhere, or so you have sewer issues, or you have electrical issues where the PG&E has come and they've pulled the panel. In fact, the house that we just got under contract, the house right next door to it had the panel pulled, and there's people living in it. And it's in some trust. I looked up the trust. The dude's 101 years old. I'm like, so I called up code enforcement. I'm like, hey, is this something that it's already on your radar? He's like, no, it's actually not. I'm like, oh, well, maybe it is now. He's like, it sure is. And so, that's another house that we're going to be going after, because now you have a code enforcement situation where, who knows what the situation is there. The trustee is supposedly 101 years old. So obviously it's been transferred from one person to another, but just not on public record. But again, you want to go after the situations where you are able to see, like, hey, what is the likelihood that this person is going to actually stay in this situation, and for how much longer? So pre-foreclosures, tax default, and code enforcement would be my number one list that I'm going after. And if you know how to stack those, I would definitely be stacking that list. Now, code enforcement or tax default and pre-foreclosure may not be on. You may not be able to stack those. In other words, you may not have the same property on that same list, mainly because most taxes are escrowed these days. However, it's possible. I mean, I have a few of these mortgages that I've taken over the years that I pay taxes separately, and they are on my. So, for example, they could be defaulted on the mortgage and on the taxes. If that's the case, then that's a high probability you want to go after that one. But what you're looking for probates. Probate's another one too. However, there's not a whole lot of pressure unless the probate has a pre-foreclosure situation or code enforcement. So probate's just thrown in the mix. But pre-foreclosure and a code enforcement, you have issues. So not only do they have the banks pushing on them against them, they have the city now coming down, or the county coming against them as well. The likelihood of survival is very, very slim in this situation. And so when you think of terms like this, like what is the likelihood, what is the chance that they're going to surmount this challenge, this difficulty, is very, very, very low. And so for you to come in as a service provider and say, look, I can provide you a service, I can pay off these debts, get these guys off your back, give you some cash, you can start over fresh, so that you're not being kicked to the curb with nothing in your pocket. This is where you're able to lend yourself and have some service. So lessons that I've learned from Sun Tzu is to attack your enemy when you're weak, or translated into real estate investing terms is to market to sellers who are in precarious situations. I don't want to use the word vulnerable because that has negative connotations, that you're preying upon the weak. In all reality, we're helping these people. They're going to lose their property. They're going to be kicked to the curb. This is exactly what happened to me. I was kicked to the curb the day after Christmas, man. I wish someone would have come to my house, to my rescue, and knocked on my door and said, hey, man, I got some cash for you and your family. Can this help you out? I gladly would have taken it. I had nothing. I lost big, man. My wife was pregnant with our second kid, and we were kicked out the day after Christmas. And so I realized the service that we are providing these people. And so, yeah, it's, what's the likelihood they're going to survive this? And they're not. They don't have the money, the resources, or the funds, or they'll be able to do it already. This is why they're in this situation. And the thing that they're going to get a loan mod is only going to put them back in the same situation again, which is, again, why I would go after stacked opportunities, because if they get a loan modification on a pre-foreclosure, they still have the code enforcement issue that they have to deal with. And especially if it's code enforcement issue because of lack of plumbing or electricity or sewage or something like that, yeah, man, you got some serious issues there. Even though I wish my county would give me the water shutoff list. They say it's proprietary. They can't do it because it's what do they say? It's against the Fair Credit Reporting Act, because they're giving you someone's credit worthiness or their inability to pay. And I'm like, that's bogus, man. But anyway, I can't get my water shutoff list, unfortunately, or I would have done that too. So anyway, that's what I have for you. That's what I would be sharing with you. It's by far, it is the clearest cut path to victory in this business, to taking down opportunities where you're helping somebody and also helping yourself. And so that's what I'll be focusing on. Like I said, I would not let the moratorium scare you away. There are opportunities right now that you could be marketing to, and I would be stacking the opportunities. Though I would get my code enforcement list, and I would get my pre-foreclosure list. And code enforcement, it's super simple to get. Tax default. Tax default, I have to pay for that list. Code enforcement, I just request. It's I want to say Freedom of Information request, but it's Freedom of Information Act is a federal law. Every state or every municipality has their own special version of that, but basically that's what it is. It's a records request, and by law they have to give you the records that you request. Now, don't be crazy and go in there and start demanding that they give you this stuff. It's just like, hey, look, I'm looking for all open cases, all code enforcement violations that have open, or all addresses that have current open code enforcement cases on them. And they may go, oh, that list is too big and all this stuff. Can you narrow it down? So that, yeah, specifically I'm looking for houses or for cases that have hazardous conditions that have red tags. or however you want. I mean, the best way is just to call up your code enforcement officer and have them give it to you. But if not, you just call the county and or the city, and they'll give it to you that way, because it's public information. They have to give it to you. Just don't be a jerk about it. And then I just stack those lists and go ahead and do that. So anyway, I'm Ryan Nickel. Just remember, guys, you are one deal away from changing your entire financial future. All it takes is just one deal. If you were to go out there and to stack a pre-foreclosure or a tax default list on top of a code enforcement list, you got deals there. You got one or two or three prime opportunities for you to go after and to just make a beautiful living in this industry that we call real estate investing. All right, I'll see y'all later.